The great hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with voices from 100 different worlds. Creatures with scales, fur, crystals for skin, and beings made of pure energy all gathered in the massive chamber that floated in space between three suns. Today was different, though. Today everyone was talking about the same thing. Ambassador Zektar walked into the hall with heavy steps. His blue skin was darker than usual, which meant he was worried. The tall alien from the Vorthok Empire had seen many battles in his long life, but nothing like what happened in the Kepler 442 system 3 days ago, friend Zektar said as he reached the center speaking area. His voice carried across the hall, making everyone stop their conversations. Bring news that will change how we think about war. The council leader, a being called Velanash, who looked like a walking crystal tree, turned all 6 of his eyes toward Zektar. Speak, Ambassador. We are listening. Zektar took a deep breath. The Crimson Fleet is gone. All of them. Dead. A wave of shocked sounds filled the hall. The Crimson Fleet had been the most feared pirates in this part of the galaxy for 20 years. They had ships, weapons, and fighters that even the Council's own forces avoided when possible. Who destroyed them? Asked Velanash. Which of our member worlds finally gathered enough ships to take them down? That is the problem, Zektar said. It was not one of us. It was the new species. The ones who call themselves humans. More shock sounds echoed through the hall. Every being there knew about humans. They were the newest species to reach space travel. Our small blue and green world had only been sending ships to other stars for 50 of their years. Most council members thought humans were still learning how to fly between planets properly. How many ships did these humans send? Asked another council member, a red creature with 4 arms named Taishra. One, Zektar said quietly. The hall went completely silent. Even the translator machines seemed to pause. 1 ship, Velanash repeated. Against the entire Crimson Fleet? That is impossible. I thought so too, Zektar said, but I have seen the records. I have talked to the few survivors. It happened exactly as I am telling you. The doors at the far end of the hall opened with a soft whoosh. 3 humans walked in, and every eye in the chamber turned to look at them. They looked so ordinary compared to the other beings present. No scales, no extra arms, no glowing parts. Just pink skin, hair on their heads, and simple clothes. The first human was a man with gray hair and lines around his eyes that showed he had seen many battles. He wore a dark blue uniform with small metal pieces on his chest. Behind him walked a woman with brown hair tied back neatly. She carried a flat device in her hands. The third human was a man with thick glasses and a friendly smile. Council leader Velanash, the first human, said with a slight bow of his head, I am Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth Defense Force ship Liberty's Edge. This is Chief Science, Officer Lisa Parker, and Dr. Alan Hughes. Velanash studied the 3 humans carefully. They looked calm, almost relaxed, not like warriors who had just destroyed the most dangerous pirate fleet in known space. Captain Morrison, Velanash said, We have heard remarkable stories about your recent actions in the Kepler 442 system. Please, tell us what happened there. Morrison nodded and looked around the hall at all the alien faces watching him. 3 days ago, we received reports that the Crimson Fleet had taken control of the mining stations around Kepler 44b. They were holding 2,000 workers as prisoners and demanding payment from anyone who wanted to use that shipping route? Yes, said Taishra. We know this. Our own forces were preparing to respond, but such an operation would take months of planning and hundreds of ships. That's what we thought you would do, Morrison said. Lisa Parker stepped forward and touched her flat device. A large image appeared in the air above them, showing the Kepler 442 system. The pirates had built defensive positions on 3 different moons, Morrison continued. They had energy shields, long-range weapons, and fast attack ships. Any normal assault would result in many deaths on both sides, and probably the execution of all the prisoners. So what did you do? Asked Zektar. Morrison looked at Dr. Hughes, who stepped forward with his friendly smile still in place. We didn't attack their positions, Hughes said. We didn't try to break through their shields or outgun their weapons. Instead, we asked ourselves a simple question. What do pirates need most? Several council members leaned forward, interested despite their confusion. Morrison said simply, food, water, power for their ships and weapons, medicine for their crews. Lisa Parker touched her device again, and the image changed to show detailed scans of the pirate base. For 6 months before this incident, human trade ships had been visiting this system, Parker explained. We sold supplies to the pirates. Good prices, reliable delivery, no questions asked. They trusted us. The hall was completely quiet now. Every being present was starting to understand something that made their blood run cold. Everything we sold them was designed to fail at exactly the right moment, Morrison said. Their air recyclers stopped working. Their food supplies contained a sleeping drug that activated when mixed with the alcohol they loved to drink. Their ship batteries died all at once. Even their weapons overheated and shut down. We arrived in the system, Parker added. The pirates were already unconscious. Their ships were powerless. Their defensive positions were running out of air. Simply flew in, rescued the prisoners, and took the pirates into custody. From start to finish, the operation took 17 minutes, Morrison said. Zed's quotes, Tar felt his legs go weak. You planned this for 6 months? Actually, Dr. Hughes said, still smiling, we have been planning for situations like this since we first learned that space pirates exist. We identified 17 different pirate groups, learned their habits, their needs, their favorite suppliers. We became their favorite suppliers. Morrison nodded. We don't fight the battles our enemies want to fight. We fight the battles we choose to fight. On ground we choose, at times we choose. Velanash's crystal body began to glow brighter, which happened when he was thinking hard. We're saying that you defeated the Crimson Fleet without firing a single weapon. Oh, we fired weapons, Morrison said, but only to destroy empty ships after we had rescued everyone. We wanted to make sure the pirates' equipment could never be used to hurt anyone again. The prisoners? Asked Tysra. What happened to them? All safe, Parker said. We delivered them to their home worlds.
Ow.
Several of them have asked to join our merchant fleet. Apparently, they were impressed by our methods. Morrison looked around the hall at all the alien faces staring at him. Council leader. We came here today because we want to work with the Galactic Council. We want to help make space safer for everyone. But we want you to understand how humans approach problems like this. And how is that? Velanash asked quietly. Doctor? Hughes stepped forward again. We don't see enemies as things to destroy. We see them as problems to solve. Every pirate was once just a person trying to survive. Every hostile fleet is made up of individuals with families and hopes and fears. When we eliminate a threat, we try to do it in a way that gives everyone a chance to choose a better path. Morrison nodded. Yeah, the Crimson Fleet prisoners are being offered jobs, education, and new lives on peaceful worlds. Most of them are accepting. Turns out when you remove the desperation and fear that drove them to piracy, they make pretty good citizens. The hall remained silent for a long moment. Finally, Velanash spoke. Captain Morrison, your species is very young in galactic terms. You have been traveling between stars for less time than some of us take to plan a single military campaign. Yet you accomplished something that our combined forces have failed to do for 20 years. Morrison shrugged. We had good teachers. Every mistake you've made over the past 1,000 years taught us what not to do. Zektar stepped forward. Captain, I must ask. Are there more human ships out there? More operations like this happening that we don't know about? Morrison and his companions exchanged glances. Finally, Morrison smiled for the first time since. Entering the hall, Ambassador Zektar. We're still very new to this whole galactic community thing. We're learning as we go. But I can tell you this. Wherever there are people being hurt by those with more power, humans are probably already working on a solution. The 3 humans turned and walked toward the exit. As they reached the doors, Morrison paused and looked. Back? Oh, and Council Leader? You might want to check on your shipping routes in the Vega system. I've heard some concerning reports about raiders there. Don't worry, though. We're handling it. Leaving the Galactic, leaving the Galactic, leaving the Galactic. Council in stunned silence. 3 weeks after the humans left the Galactic Council chamber, the news networks across the galaxy were still talking about what happened to the Crimson Fleet. Some species called it luck. Others said it was a trick that would never work twice. The Gorvak hegemony called it weakness. War Chief Kratos stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Iron Fang, and watched the stars through the main viewing window. His gray skin was covered in battle scars, and his forearms each held a different weapon. Behind him, dozens of his warriors prepared for what they believed would be an easy fight. "These humans think they are clever," Kratos growled to his second in command. "They play games with pirates and merchants, but we are Gorvak. We do not trade. We do not negotiate. We take what we want." Gorvak had built their empire on simple rules. If you were stronger, you took from the weak. You were weaker, you served the strong. They had conquered 43 worlds using these rules, and their fleet of 200 warships was the largest in this part of the galaxy. On the bridge communication screen, an image appeared of a human woman in a dark uniform. She had short, black hair and calm eyes that seemed to look right through Kratos. "War Chief Kratos," the woman said, "I am Admiral Kate Sullivan of the Earth Defense Force. We have received your demands for tribute from human ships passing through what you call Gorvak space." Kratos laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Good. You understand your place, human? Pay us 1,000,000 credits for each ship that passes through our territory, and we will let you live." Admiral Sullivan did not look afraid. She did not look angry. She simply nodded. "We accept your challenge, War Chief." Kratos stopped laughing. "Challenge? I made no challenge. I made a demand." "When you threaten human ships, you challenge humanity," Sullivan said. "When you challenge humanity, we respond. The Proxima Centauri system. 3 days from now. Bring your fleet." The communication ended, leaving Kratos staring at a blank screen. His warriors looked at each other with confusion. In all their years of conquest, no one had ever responded to their demands with a challenge. Admiral, his second in command, said, "Should we prepare for a trick like the humans used on the pirates?" Kratos struck the nearest wall with his fist, leaving a dent in the metal.
Ow.
"There will be no tricks. We will meet them in open battle. Ship to ship, warrior to warrior. We will show the galaxy what happens to those who defy the Gorvak." Far away on the Galactic Council station, Ambassador Zektar received the news with growing worry. He immediately sent a message to the human delegation. "Admiral Sullivan," he said when she appeared on his communication screen, "the Gorvak hegemony possesses the largest battle fleet in this sector. Their warriors are bred from birth to fight. They know nothing but war. This could be a massacre." Sullivan sat in what appeared to be her office on Earth. Behind her, Zektar could see pictures of human families and what looked like awards for military service. "You're absolutely right, Ambassador," she said quietly. "It will be." Zektar felt his blue skin turn even darker. "Admiral, please reconsider. The Council can arrange for negotiations. We can find a peaceful solution." "There is a peaceful solution," Sullivan said. "The Gorvak leave human ships alone, and everyone gets to go home alive. Unfortunately, they have already chosen violence." The communication ended, leaving Zektar more worried than before. He had seen what humans could do to pirates who were not expecting trouble, but the Gorvak were different. They lived for battle. They would not be caught off guard by poisoned supplies or broken equipment. 3 days later, Proxima Centauri system became the focus of the entire galaxy. News ships from dozens of species positioned themselves at safe distances to record what everyone expected to be humanity's first real defeat. The Gorvak fleet arrived first. 200 warships arranged themselves in perfect battle formation, their weapons charged and ready. Each ship carried 1,000 warriors eager to prove their strength against the humans who had become famous across the galaxy. Kratos stood on his bridge, studying the scanner displays. "Where are they?" he demanded. "Cowards. They have run away," his scanner operator said. "I am detecting one ship. Very small, moving toward us from the inner planets." On the main screen, a single human vessel appeared. It was smaller than even the Gorvak scout ships, with smooth curves and no visible weapons. The name Endurance was painted on its side. In simple letters, "One ship." Kratos could not believe what he was seeing. They send one ship against our entire fleet. A communication signal came from the human vessel. The image that appeared showed a man with brown hair and a calm expression. He wore the same dark blue uniform as the other humans they had seen. "Gorvac Fleet," the man said. "This is Commander Rick Davis of the Earthship Endurance. You have 30 seconds to withdraw from this system and return to your own territory." The laughter that erupted from the Gorvac bridge was so loud it hurt the ears of anyone listening. Kratos wiped tears from his eyes as he tried to stop laughing long enough to speak. "One ship," he said between fits of laughter. "One tiny ship. Against 200 warships? Human, you will make excellent slaves when this is over." Commander Davis looked at something off-screen, then back at Kratos. 29 seconds. "Load all weapons," Kratos ordered his crew. "Target that pathetic little ship. You will vaporize them and then hunt down the rest of their cowardly fleet." "Sir," his weapons officer said, "all weapons are loaded and ready." "Seconds," Davis said calmly. Kratos raised his fist into the air. "Fire everything. Show them the power of the Gorvac." His weapons officer pressed the firing controls. Nothing happened. "Sir, weapons are not responding." 27 seconds. Kratos pushed his weapons officer aside and tried the controls himself. The weapon systems were completely dead. "Engineering? What is wrong with our weapons?" "Systems are showing normal, but nothing is working." 26 seconds. Across the Gorvac fleet, the same thing was happening on every ship. Weapons would not fire. Engines would not respond. Life support systems began to fail one by one. "Sir." His communications officer called out, "We are receiving reports from the entire fleet. All ships are losing power." 25 seconds. Kratos felt something he had never experienced before in his life. Fear. What is happening? What are they doing to us? From the human ship, a new voice joined the communication. A woman with blonde hair and a white coat appeared next to Commander Davis. "Hello, War Chief Kratos," she said with a friendly smile. "I am Dr. Sophie Miller. I wanted to explain what is happening to your fleet before you die. You are doing this?" Kratos could barely speak. "How do you remember the fuel shipments your fleet purchased 6 months ago?" Dr. Miller asked. "It's very good prices from a company called Solar Dynamics. You bought enough fuel to power your entire fleet for a year." Kratos did remember. Supply officers had been very pleased with the deal. Quality fuel at prices far below what they usually paid. "That fuel contained microscopic machines," Dr. Miller continued. "Tiny robots, smaller than the cells. In your body, for 6 months, they have been spreading through every system on every ship in your fleet." The lights on the Gorvac bridge began to flicker and dim. 20 seconds, Commander Davis said. "The machines were designed to activate when they received a specific signal," Dr. Miller explained. "That signal was sent the moment you refused our offer to withdraw. Now they are consuming the metal components of your ship's most important systems." Kratos looked around his bridge as control panels began to spark and go dark. "Poisoned." "Our fuel? We gave you exactly what you paid for," Dr. Miller said. "Quality fuel that would power your ships perfectly for 6 months. We just didn't mention the additional features." 15 seconds. "This is impossible," Kratos said. "Our engineers tested that fuel. Our scientists approved it." "Your engineers tested it for fuel quality," Commander Davis said. "It was excellent fuel. Your scientists checked for known toxins and explosives. There were none. No one thought to look for technology that wouldn't be invented for another 100 years." The life support systems on Kratos' ship began to fail. The air was getting thin, and the temperature was dropping. 10 seconds. "You planned this." Kratos gasped as breathing became harder. "For 6 months you planned this." "Actually," Dr. Miller said, "we've been planning this for 2 years. Ever since we learned that the Gorvac hegemony existed and what you do to peaceful species." 5 seconds. Kratos fell to his knees as the last of the ship's power died. Emergency lights flickered on, but they too began to fail as the tiny machines consumed the backup systems. For seconds, around the Proxima Centauri system, 200 Gorvac warships went dark one by one. No explosions. No fire, no dramatic battle. Just darkness and silence, as the most feared fleet in the galaxy became 200 floating tombs. 3 seconds. "Why?" Kratos whispered with his last breath. Why did you not simply destroy us quickly? Commander Davis looked sad for the first time during the entire encounter. Because we wanted you to understand. We wanted you to know that this was not a battle. This was not a war. This was justice. Time, he said quietly. The communication ended. In the space around Proxima Centauri, 200 Gorvac warships drifted silently among the stars. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been going on for 6 hours. Representatives from 300 worlds sat in their seats, looking at data screens that showed the same impossible information over and over again. In the 3 months since the destruction of the Gorvac fleet, reports had been flooding in from across the galaxy. Council investigator Tishra stood at the center of the Great Hall, her red skin darker than usual with stress. She had spent her entire career studying military conflicts, but nothing in her experience had prepared her for what she was seeing. The pattern is clear, she announced to the assembly, but the implications are terrifying. On the massive display screen above the chamber, a map of the galaxy appeared. Red dots marked locations where various criminal organizations, pirate fleets, and hostile governments had simply vanished over the past year. The Razor Syndicate, Tishra said, pointing to a cluster of red dots. Gone. All 47 of their bases destroyed or abandoned within a single day. No battles, survivors, no explanations. She moved her pointing device to another area of the map. The Blood Moon pirates vanished. Their entire fleet of 100 ships found drifting in space. Crews dead from what appeared to be some kind of sleeping sickness. More red dots appeared as she continued. The slave lords of Zarian. Their entire operation collapsed when their computer systems were infected with a virus that freed all their prisoners and transferred their wealth to refugee organizations. Ambassador Zekdar raised one of his 4 hands. Investigator, are you saying that all of these incidents are connected to the humans? Tishra nodded grimly. I think that is exactly what I am saying. But it is worse than simple connection. These events were not random attacks. They were part of a coordinated campaign that began before humans even made official contact with the Galactic Council. The hall erupted in shocked voices. Beings from hundreds of different species began talking at once, their translator devices, creating a chaos of overlapping conversations. Council leader Velanash used his authority to restore order. Investigator Tishra, please continue with your report. Thank you, Council leader. Tishra touched her control device, and the display changed to show a timeline. This is what we know. 18 months ago, human merchant ships began appearing in various systems throughout the galaxy. They traded fairly, asked reasonable prices, and caused no problems. That sounds normal, said one of the council members, a being that looked like a walking tree with silver bark. It would be normal, Tishra agreed, if the merchants were actually merchants. Our investigation has revealed that these trade ships were carrying advanced scanning equipment, intelligence-gathering devices, and reconnaissance specialists. She pointed to specific dates on the timeline. Every criminal organization that has been eliminated was visited by human merchants months before their destruction. The humans studied their operations, learned their weaknesses, and identified their supply chains. Admiral Jake Morrison sat in the human delegation area with 2 other humans. One was Dr. Rachel Stone, a woman with brown hair and sharp eyes, who had been introduced as Earth's new council liaison. The other was a man named Dr. Peter Walsh, who wore thick glasses and carried a tablet computer. Admiral Morrison Velanash said, "Do you wish to respond to these accusations?" Morrison stood up slowly. Council leader, we have not been accused of anything illegal. Investigator Tishra has simply described standard intelligence gathering, operations that any responsible government would conduct when entering a new region of space. Standard. Tishra's voice rose in pitch. Admiral, your species eliminated the Gorvac hegemony without firing a single shot. Out, you destroyed criminal. Organizations that had operated for decades, using methods that no one in this chamber has ever seen before. Dr. Stone stood up next to Morrison. Investigator, may I ask what methods you would have preferred? Should we have assembled large fleets and fought traditional battles that would have killed millions of innocent people? It is not the point. Tishra replied. The point is that you are not fighting wars the way wars are supposed to be fought. You are changing the rules. Dr. Walsh spoke for the first time, his voice quiet but clear. Rules, investigator. Whose rules are those? The rules that allowed the Gorvok to enslave 43 worlds. The rules that let pirates attack merchant ships for 50 years without consequence. The rules that permitted the slave lords to buy and sell sentient beings. The hall went quiet. Dr. Walsh adjusted his glasses and continued. We studied your rules and we found them lacking, so we made better ones. Zektar leaned forward in his seat. Dr. Walsh, what you call making better rules looks like something else entirely. It looks like you have been planning a conquest. Of this entire region of space? Conquest? Morrison laughed, but it was not a happy sound. Ambassador, if we wanted to conquer this region, we would not have bothered eliminating criminals and pirates. We would have simply taken control of the council itself. Temperature in the hall seemed to drop several degrees. Every being present suddenly realized they were having this conversation because the humans had allowed it to happen. Admiral Velanash said carefully, Are you saying that you could have taken control of the council? Dr. Stone stepped forward with a smile that did not reach her eyes. Council leader, 3 days ago you ate breakfast in your private chambers. Toast made from grain, imported from the Rigel system, fruit juice from Vega, and coffee from a small colony world called New Kenya. Velanash's crystal body began to glow brighter. How do you know this? The grain was grown using fertilizer produced by a company owned by human investors, Stone continued. The fruit juice was transported by a shipping line that uses human-designed navigation software. The coffee was processed using machines built in human factories. She looked around the hall at all the alien faces staring at her. Shall I continue? Should I mention the medications that keep Ambassador Zektar's heart condition stable? Entertainment programs that Representative Koth downloads to his personal device. It's the repair parts that keep this station's life support systems running. Morrison nodded. We have been studying this galaxy for 2 years. Not just the criminals and pirates, but everyone. Every species, every government, every trade route, every supply chain. We know how everything works because we helped build it. Tishra felt her legs becoming weak. You infiltrated our entire civilization. We integrated ourselves into your civilization, Dr. Walsh corrected. We became part of it. We made ourselves useful, reliable, and trusted. And in doing so, we learned everything we needed to know about how to protect the innocent and eliminate the threats. Why? Velanash asked. Why go to all this trouble? Why not simply announce your presence and ask for help with the criminal organizations? Morrison's expression became serious, because we learned about the Gorvak War 40 years ago. We learned about the Crimson Fleet's 20-year reign of terror. We learned about the slave lords and their markets. And we learned that the Galactic Council had been discussing what to do about these problems for decades, without ever actually doing anything. Dr. Stone nodded. The Council prefers diplomacy and negotiation. These are good tools for dealing with reasonable people, but pirates and slavers are not reasonable people. They are predators, and predators only understand strength. So you appointed yourselves as judges. Tishra demanded. You decided who lived and who died? Oh, Morrison said quietly. We gave everyone a choice. The Gorvak could have withdrawn from Proxima Centauri. The pirates could have released their prisoners and found honest work. The slave lords could have freed their captives and changed their ways, but they didn't, Dr. Walsh added. They chose to continue hurting innocent people, so we chose to stop them. Zektar stood up from his seat. Admiral, I must ask directly, what are your intentions toward the Council, toward the peaceful members of our galactic community? Morrison looked at Dr. Stone and Dr. Walsh, then back at the assembled aliens. That depends on what you choose to do next. What do you mean? Velanash asked. Dr. Stone stepped forward. The old system is broken. Criminal organizations operate freely while the Council debates. Pirates attack merchant ships while committees write reports. Slavers buy and sell people while diplomats schedule meetings. She gestured toward the display screen, which still showed the map of eliminated threats. We can continue cleaning up these problems ourselves, one by one, until the galaxy is safe for peaceful beings. We can work together to build something better. Morrison nodded. We prefer cooperation to conquest. But we will not allow innocent people to suffer while politicians argue about the proper procedures for helping them. And if we refuse to cooperate? Tysher asked. Dr. Walsh looked at her with sad eyes. Then you will become irrelevant. The pirates and criminals already fear us more than they fear the council. The peaceful species are already turning to us for protection. Trade routes are already being secured by human merchants and human technology. You're replacing us, Velenash realized. We're offering you the chance to remain relevant, Morrison corrected. But only if you're willing to change. Only if you're willing to put the safety of innocent people ahead of political procedures. Emperor Valdris sat on his crystal throne in the heart of the Three Suns Empire, watching the holographic displays that showed his vast domain. For 10,000 years, his people had ruled over 112 worlds. They had built the greatest civilization in galactic history through strength, discipline, and unwavering belief in their own superiority. The news from the Galactic Council had reached him 3 days ago. These humans, these children who had barely learned to travel between stars, thought they could reshape the galaxy to their liking. They had destroyed pirates and criminals, which was amusing. But now they spoke of replacing the old order with something new. This could not be allowed. General Kron Valdris said to the tall figure standing beside his throne, "How many ships can we assemble?" General Kron, a being with silver skin and 4 arms, consulted his datapad. "Emperor, we can field 5,000 warships and 50 million soldiers within 1 month. The largest military force ever assembled in galactic history." Good, Valdris said. These humans have had their fun playing with pirates and weak governments. Now they will face a real empire. Now they will learn what true power looks like. He stood up from his throne, his golden robes flowing around him. Send word to all our worlds. Every ship, every soldier, every weapon, we march on the Sol system. We will crush these humans in their home territory and show the galaxy that the Three Suns Empire bows to no one. Far away on Earth, Admiral Morrison sat in his office, reading the intelligence reports that had been flooding in all day. The Three Suns Empire was mobilizing everything they had. This was not going to be like the pirates or the Gorvak. This was a real war, with a real empire that had been fighting and winning battles for thousands of years. Dr. Janet Brooks knocked on his door and entered without waiting for permission. She was a small woman with gray hair and bright eyes that seemed to see everything. Her official title was Director of Cultural Analysis, but everyone who worked with her knew she was much more than that. "Admiral," she said, setting a thick folder on his desk. "We have a problem." Morrison looked up from his reports. "Just one." "I count about 5,000 problems heading our way." Brooks smiled. "Actually, we have an opportunity. The Three Suns Empire is not like the Gorvak or the pirates. They're not criminals or barbarians. They're a legitimate civilization with art, music, literature, and philosophy. They're also planning to invade Earth with the largest fleet in galactic history," Morrison pointed out. "Exactly," Brooks said, "which means we can't use the same methods we used before. We can't poison their supplies or sabotage their equipment. They're too smart and too careful for those tricks to work twice." Morrison leaned back in his chair. "So what do you suggest?" Brooks opened her folder and pulled out several data chips. "We fight them on a battlefield they never knew existed. We attack them with weapons they can't defend against." She inserted one of the chips into Morrison's computer. The screen filled with images of human art, music, literature, and scientific discoveries. "Every species in the galaxy has some capacity for appreciation of beauty," Brooks explained.
Nice.
"Even the most warlike races have poets and musicians. The Three Suns Empire has a particularly rich cultural tradition. Pride themselves on their artistic achievements almost as much as their military victories." Morrison studied the images on his screen. "You want to fight them with art? I want to show them something they've never seen before," Brooks said. "Something so beautiful, so moving, so perfect, that it changes how they think about everything." Pulled up another display showing the Three Suns fleet as it moved toward Earth. "Expect us to meet them with weapons and shields and military tactics. Instead, we're going to meet them with Bach and Mozart, with Shakespeare and Einstein, with everything that makes humanity special." Morrison shook his head. Janet, they're coming here to destroy us. They're not coming for a cultural exchange. That's exactly why it will work, Brooks said. They're prepared for war. They're not prepared for wonder. 3 weeks later, the Three Suns fleet reached the outer edge of the Sol system. Emperor Valdris stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Victory, surrounded by his most trusted generals. The human home system looked so small and insignificant compared to the mighty empire he commanded. Begin long-range scans, he ordered. Find their defensive positions. Locate their fleet. The scanner operator worked at his controls for several minutes before looking up with confusion. Emperor, I am detecting very few military vessels. Their defenses appear to be minimal. A trap? Asked General Crone. Perhaps, Valdris said, or perhaps they know they cannot win and have chosen to surrender. Either way, we proceed with caution. The Three Suns fleet moved deeper into the Sol system. Something strange began to happen. Their communication systems, which normally carried only military chatter and tactical updates, began broadcasting something else entirely. It started as a single melody, soft and gentle, flowing through the speakers on every ship in the fleet. The music was unlike anything they had ever heard before. It spoke of joy and sorrow, of love and loss, of hopes and dreams that transcended species and worlds. What is this? Valdris demanded. Where is this music coming from? His communications officer tried to block the signal, but it seemed to be coming from everywhere at once. Emperor, the signal is being transmitted on frequencies we didn't know existed. I cannot stop it. The melody was joined by others, creating a symphony that seemed to paint pictures in the minds of everyone who heard it. Soldiers who had known only warfare began to weep as they experienced emotions they had forgotten they possessed. Sir, one of the fleet captains reported over the communication system, my crew is requesting permission to listen to more of this music. They say it reminds them of home. Valdris felt something stirring in his own chest as the music continued. Memories of his childhood, of times before the weight of empire had settled on his shoulders, began to surface in his mind. Maintain formation, he ordered, though his voice lacked its usual authority. Continue the advance. But as the hours passed, the effect of the music grew stronger. It was joined by voices speaking words of such beauty and wisdom that even the most hardened warriors found themselves stopping to listen. Commander. Steve Jackson stood on the bridge of the human ship Constitution, watching as the massive enemy fleet began to slow its advance. The ship was small compared to the Three Suns vessels, but it carried the most important cargo in human history. Dr. Brooks, he said into his communication device. How are our guests responding? Brooks' voice came back, filled with excitement. Better than we hoped, Commander. We're detecting decreased military activity across their entire fleet. Many ships have actually stopped moving altogether. And the Emperor? Still advancing, but slowly? I think he's fighting the effect more than his soldiers are. Jackson nodded. Begin Phase 2. Across the Three Suns fleet, the music was joined by images. Pictures of human families, children playing, lovers embracing, artists creating, scientists discovering, teachers teaching, and builders building. The images showed not conquest or domination, but cooperation and growth, and the endless potential for life to become more than it was. On the bridge of the Eternal Victory. General Crone wiped tears from his eyes as he watched the display screens. Emperor, I don't understand what's happening to us. Valdris was struggling with the same confusion. The music and images were affecting him in ways he couldn't explain. For the first time in his long life, he was questioning everything he had believed about power and strength and the right to rule over others. It's beautiful, whispered one of his junior officers. I never knew anything could be so beautiful. As the human transmission continued, something remarkable began to happen throughout the Three Suns fleet. Soldiers began laying down their weapons. Officers abandoned their posts to write poetry. Engineers started designing buildings instead of weapons. Scientists began asking questions about creating life rather than destroying it. Emperor, his communications officer called out, we're receiving thousands of messages from our fleet. Ships are requesting permission to defect? Valdris could barely understand the word. In 10,000 years of empire, no one had ever defected from the Three Suns military. They want to request asylum on Earth, the officer continued. They say they want to learn more about human culture. They want to become part of something greater than conquest. Valdris looked around his bridge at his officers and crew. Every one of them was staring at the human transmissions with wonder and longing. Even General Kron, his most loyal and ruthless commander, had tears streaming down his face.
What have
They done to us? Valdris asked quietly. As if in answer to his question, a new voice joined the transmission. A human woman appeared on the screen, elderly but with kind eyes and a gentle smile. Emperor Valdris, she said, my name is Dr. Janet Brooks. I want to thank you for listening to our message. What kind of weapon is this? Valdris demanded, though his voice had lost all its anger. It's not a weapon, Brooks replied. It's invitation. An invitation to see what life could be like if we spent our energy creating instead of destroying. If we used our intelligence to build instead of conquering. We chose to grow instead of just taking. 6 months after the Three Suns fleet had surrendered without firing a shot, the Galactic Council chamber looked completely different. Where once there had been formal seating arranged by species and political power, now beings from hundreds of worlds sat together in mixed groups, working on projects that would have seemed impossible a year ago. Admiral Morrison stood at the center of the hall. But he no longer wore his military uniform. Instead, he dressed in simple civilian clothes, looking more like a teacher than a warrior. Around him, the representatives who had once feared humanity now worked alongside human advisors and specialists. The transformation is complete, he announced to the assembled beings. The last of the criminal organizations has been eliminated. The final pirate stronghold has been converted into a refugee settlement. The shipping lanes are safe for all peaceful travelers. A cheer went up from the crowd, but Morrison raised his hand for quiet. But this is not the end of our work, he continued. It is the beginning. Today we officially dissolve the Galactic Council and establish the Terran Accord. Dr. Amanda Phillips stepped forward carrying a document that had been signed by representatives from over 400 worlds. She was a woman with silver hair and calm eyes, who had spent the last 6 months working with alien governments to create something that had never existed before, a truly cooperative galactic government. The Terran Accord is built on 3 simple principles, she announced. First, cooperation over conquest. No member world will use force against another member world. All disputes will be resolved through discussion and compromise. She paused as the translation systems caught up with her words. Second, innovation over tradition. We will not do things a certain way simply because they have always been done that way. We will constantly look for better methods, better solutions, better ways to help our people live good lives. Another pause. Third, growth over stagnation. Every being in the Accord will have the opportunity to learn, to create, to become more than they were yesterday. We will measure our success not by how much territory we control, but by how much we help each other grow. Former Emperor Valdris stood up from his seat. In the months since his fleet had been transformed by human culture, he had changed dramatically. Gone were the elaborate robes and symbols of power. Now he wore simple clothes and spent his time working with refugees and former prisoners from across the galaxy. I wish to speak, he said quietly. The hall fell silent. Everyone remembered the mighty emperor who had commanded the largest fleet in galactic history. Now they saw a man who looked peaceful and thoughtful. 6 months ago I came to this system to destroy the humans, Valdris said. I brought 5,000 warships and 50 million soldiers. I was prepared to wipe out an entire species because I believed that strength was the only thing that mattered. He looked around the hall at faces that had once been his enemies. The humans could have destroyed my fleet. They had the technology and the knowledge to eliminate us just as they eliminated the Gorvak. Instead, they showed us something we had never seen before. They showed us beauty. His voice grew stronger as he continued. My people measured greatness. My people measured greatness by how many worlds we conquered. The humans taught us to measure greatness by how many lives we improved. They showed us that real strength comes not from the ability to destroy, but from the ability to create. He sat down to respectful silence. Council leader Velanash, whose crystal body now glowed with warm light instead of the cold brightness of political power, stood next. "I've been thinking about what we have witnessed," he said. "The humans did not defeat us. They did not conquer us. They transformed us." Dr. Phillips nodded. Transformation was always the goal. Every species in this galaxy has incredible potential. The problem was that everyone was so busy fighting each other that no one had time to grow. "But how did you know it would work?" asked investigator Tishra, who now served as the Accord's director of peaceful solutions. "How did you know that beings like the Gorvak or the pirates could be changed?" Morrison smiled. "Because we studied your history. Every species that is now part of the Accord went through a period of violence and warfare, humans included. But we also saw that every species eventually moved beyond that stage when they were given the right conditions." He gestured to a display that showed the transformation of various worlds over the past months. The former Gorvak territories are now producing art and music that brings joy to billions of people. The pirates who once raided merchant ships are now running rescue operations to help stranded travelers. The slave lords are using their organizational skills to coordinate relief efforts for disaster victims. Dr. Janet Brooks, who had orchestrated the cultural campaign against the Three Suns Empire, stood up. "The secret was understanding that no one is truly evil," she said. "They are just afraid, or desperate, or angry, or lost. When you remove the fear and desperation, when you give people hope and purpose, they choose to be good."
What about those who refuse to change?"
asked Ambassador Zektar, who now served as the Accord's ambassador to non-member worlds. Morrison's expression became sad. Some did refuse. The Gorvak leadership chose death over surrender. Some of the pirates chose to fight rather than accept our offer of a new life. We gave everyone a choice, but we could not force anyone to choose wisely. "And now?" Velanash asked. "What happens to the Terran Accord? How do we prevent it from becoming just another empire?" Dr. Phillips smiled. "By remembering that this is not humanity's empire, this is everyone's future. Humans are not the rulers of the Accord. We are simply the gardeners who helped plant the seeds." She activated a holographic display that showed the structure of the new government. Instead of a hierarchy with humans at the top, it showed a network of interconnected councils and committees with representatives from every member species. "Decision-making is shared among all members," Phillips explained. "Humans have no special authority. We simply offer our expertise when it is requested." "What expertise is that?" asked a representative from the former Three Suns Empire. Morrison laughed. "The same expertise we have always offered. We are very good at solving problems. We are very good at finding better ways to do things. We are very good at helping others discover their own potential." Captain Julie Edwards, who had been exploring the far reaches of the galaxy, entered the hall with news that made everyone sit up straight. "We have made contact with the Andromeda Confederation," she announced. "They have been watching our transformation of this galaxy with great interest." A murmur of excitement went through the hall. The Andromeda Confederation was a collection of species from the neighboring galaxy that had been observing the Milky Way for thousands of years but had never made direct contact. "They want to establish diplomatic relations," Edwards continued. "They're particularly interested in our methods of peaceful conflict resolution." Morrison nodded. "Send them our standard diplomatic package. Art, music, literature, and scientific discoveries from all member worlds. Let them see what we have built together. If they prove hostile," asked Valdris. Morrison's smile was gentle but confident. "Then we will show them the same thing we showed everyone else. We will show them that there is a better way to live." As the session continued, representatives from across the galaxy shared reports of the progress being made on their worlds. Former battlefields had become farms. Old weapons factories were now producing medical equipment. Military academies had been converted into schools for art and science. "The numbers are remarkable," reported Dr. Walsh, the economist who had helped design the Accord's resource-sharing system. "Galaxy-wide production of food, medicine, and consumer goods has increased by 300%. Violence has decreased by 97%. and applications for higher education have increased by over 1,000%. Most importantly, added Dr. Stone, birth rates across all species have increased significantly. When people are not afraid for their survival, they choose to have families and build futures. As the session drew to a close, Orson looked around the hall at the faces of beings who had once been enemies and were now partners in building something greater than any of them could have achieved alone. "There is one more thing we need to discuss," he said. "The question of what happens next. The Accord is successful, but success brings new challenges." He activated a star map that showed not just their galaxy, but the vast universe beyond.
Out there.
Are other galaxies out there? Other civilizations? Some of them are peaceful, like the Andromeda Confederation, but others are not. Some are still trapped in the old ways of thinking, where strength is measured by how much you can destroy. "And?" asked Velenash. Morrison's expression was determined but peaceful. "And we will teach them the same lesson we taught ourselves. That real strength comes from helping others grow. That true victory is achieved not by defeating your enemies, but by turning them into friends." Dr. Phillips stepped forward with a new document. "I present the Galactic Expansion Protocol, a plan for sharing our message of cooperation and growth with civilizations throughout the universe." "How long will it take?" asked Valdris. Morrison shrugged. "As long as it takes. We have learned to think in terms of centuries and millennia, not years and decades.